Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another video here on Unclear with me, Séamus, Brady, your host. I'm joined once again by Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman. Matthew, we are fresh off the back, and I mean literally a few hours off the back of the league finals. Kerry capturing the first ever Micheál Hurtig Cup in the Division 1 final, and Offaly having an amazing victory over Kildare in the Division 3 final, while Monaghan and Limerick also won their football finals. Down had success in the hurling. We also had the LGFA final round, Camogie action. Big weekend. Looking forward to jumping into it. Thanks for jumping back on, man.
No problem, James. Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Turns out the football, I only got one right, and then look at actually the hurling, all the three lowered here, I actually got them all right. So pretty happy about that, to be honest with you. And apparently, we don't know anything about hurling, so that probably just shows you all you need to know for that. But the football was a particularly interesting weekend. I thought, in fairness, Offaly today against Kildare, I thought their style of football was really, really good. It's just, I know we don't want to dip into controversies and things like that, and we want to preview the review, should I say, the weekend's games. But the fact that Offaly won't be in Sabbath, they have to beat Dublin to get there. And you'd see sides like Clare in the Sabbath, it just probably makes a mockery of the whole thing this year. Like, that's a team Offaly that deserve to be in Sabbath. Look at the way they played football today. It was absolutely outstanding, brilliant to watch. And they should be rewarded for that. But you look at the other games, Limerick produced a good performance against Wexford, albeit Wexford had a few injuries at the start of the game and then before the game in the warm-up as well, which didn't help their cause. Monaghan produced an outstanding performance against Roscommon last night. It probably just shows you as well, Roscommon are probably way behind the curve with what they were in the first few games. And then Kerry and Mayo, I don't know how to really describe it, Seamus, and I don't know how would you describe it yourself, but to me, it looked like two sides that were just playing a game of football, and there wasn't blood and thunder whatsoever. They were trying to just get through it, and that's all there was. And I've seen a tweet from Daniel Hussey as well. In the last 10 years or so, this is the lowest attendance out of a Division 1 final with 21,000 or so. So it probably just shows that the league finals aren't as prestigious anymore. But then again, Kerry, they've done it before. They've won the league title. They've gone to win the honour before. They're able to do it again under Jack for the fourth time, I think it is, after 09, 06 and 04. So they're able to do it again. There's a real possibility that they'll do it again. But probably a strange weekend in terms of the Division 1 final in particular.
Yeah, no, I do agree. We have a couple of comments in here to start us off. We have a very, very happy Offaly man, Liam White. I actually met Liam for the first time in person, would you believe, at the ground today. Long overdue, Liam, top man, and happy out that Offaly had got over the line in their Division 3 final. I mean, I said it, we were chatting at halftime, I was saying I think you have it, and they did go on to win it. Sean O'Malley here, good to have you back, Sean. It says the All-Ireland is between Donegal, Galway and Kerry. And Brian O'Riordan here, good to have you back, Brian, on the show. He says Kerry, very easy and comfortable win. Mayo went down without any fight and whimper. They were dominated by Kerry at midfield, and their weaknesses were showed up in the forwards. Yeah, we're going to jump into that game first. Starting off though with the general debate, because you touched on it there before we actually get in. The prestige around the competition. Now, I think the move of renaming the cup, the Micheál Hurtig Cup, was a great move in terms of obviously honouring his legacy, but also adding prestige to the competition, because that is an icon of our games that now the cup is named after. I just think when you factor in these things, when you factor in that Mayo and Kerry, it's a long, long journey to Croke Park. Like, it's a long, you have to commit your weekend basically to go into this league final. And if you are getting the sense that they might not give it everything they got, because McStay pretty much said that in his post-match interview. Like, he was talking about how they had come up to Croke Park to win, but the game that they have in the Connacht Championship only around the corner was also on their mind. So if I were a fan of Mayo or Kerry, it would be on my mind to, like, is it worth going all the way to Dublin and, paying all that money for the petrol and for the tickets and for the food and for everything? Because if you're looking at, like, bringing your family, for example, to this game, like, that's a fair chunk of money. And, like, once you get the feeling that teams won't give it everything they got, or just a hint that they might not, it would put off a lot of fans.
Maybe so, yeah. And but then again, you look at the Division One final attendances. Like, this is a brilliant tweet that Daniel Hosty, obviously great man from Dublin himself. I know yourself and Aaron are both dubs as well, but this is another great dub to put up social media content. In the Kerry Mayo final in 2022, the attendance was 31,506. In the 2019 final between the sides, again 44,257. Between like, there wasn't the low attendance in the league final in Division One anyway. Obviously disregarding COVID, because 2021 and 2022 there was, other factors and things like that. But there hasn't been a final under, say, up to 2024. From 2011 to 2024, there wasn't a Division One final under 30,000 booked for one, and that was 2012 between Cork and Mayo, which was 22,827. Today it was even smaller, 21,596. And there is factors to this as well. When you look at, I suppose, Mayo having a game next week against Sligo, that's arguably a more important game for them to probably go ahead and win a Connacht title. I think that Mayo haven't won a Connacht title, disregarding COVID. They haven't won a Connacht title since 2015. So I suppose that's probably at the forefront of their minds as well. Kerry, there is the argument that they don't really care about the league and things like that. They might have cared today or whatever, but maybe it was just a flat game of football. I would have thought that today, especially with Kildare and Offaly being on first, and with the huge prestige that the Offaly fans do bring to Croke Park, as well as Kildare, to be fair to them, and Kildare and Offaly are pretty close to the ground, especially Kildare. You could get a train from, let's say, Maynooth or Leixlip or somewhere in Kildare, straight into the stadium to Dromcondra. So I thought that today's attendance would at least be 30,000, but it wasn't to be. I'm not sure as to why, really. Like, Offaly and Kildare are both in Leinster quarterfinals as well, so they won't have a game next week. The only side out of the four today that will have a game next week is Mayo against Sligo. So I was expecting a big attendance. Then you add into the factors, well, I think you'll see on social media as well, people kind of pick and choose their games. But I suppose, wouldn't the league final be more of a prestigious event than just, say, randomly a round 5 or a round 6 game in the normal league season? So I would say there are factors, yes, given that, but given that Division 1, there's a trophy on the line, and given the counties involved today, and it's a lead up to the championship. Like, this is the biggest preview to the championship, because the championship, as crazy as it sounds, starts next weekend. Like, the ads are already going up on RT, even though RT are just put a bunch of kids on a wall. I don't know what that's about, for about a 5-second clip. That's the promo for the championship next week. There you go. But that was probably the biggest preview to the championship, these league finals today, and to see that attendance is pretty poor, in my opinion. I know there's other costs and things like that, but when you look at the other league final attendances down through the years, especially between the counties themselves in Kerry and Mayo, which was 31,000 and 44,000, it was disappointing.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said there is spot on. I think when you look at the different kind of, I think it weighs into a larger discussion of what the country's like right now, the cost of living, and just how expensive everything is right now. That if you were thinking, like, say I'm, a lad in my 20s from Mayo, for example, I'm like, I'll go with my friends to Dublin to watch this game. Like, you're talking $6.50 per pint. God knows how much for the petrol up. God knows how much if you want to stay the night, if you don't know anybody in Dublin, for example. Then if you want to get food, that's pretty expensive as well. It's a fair chunk of change out of your budget. And that means that then the show has to be pretty special. Like, the show has to be something that you cannot miss, which is why championship attendances last season were still fairly healthy going down the home stretch, like in the semi-finals and obviously the finals. But when it's a game that you get the sense that they might not give it everything they got. And the thing is, like, you can't tell me that Mayo and Kerry played to the best of their ability and gave it everything that they got. I was in the stadium. The last 20 minutes were it was like a trial game. It was like, there wasn't that crunching intensity that you would expect from a Kerry and Mayo game. There was that intensity for the first half. Every challenge was ferocious in the first half. But Yeah, I would have some questions. So let's jump right in with that game. The Alliance Football League Division 1 final of 2025. Kerry won 18, Mayo won 12. This took place at HQ in Croke Park. Kerry winning the inaugural Micheál Ó Muircheartaigh Cup. And Matthew, I just want to say for Jarlath Burns, what a nice touch that was to pass over to Micheál Ó Muircheartaigh's family to present the trophy to Gavin White. Pretty fitting as well that it was Kerry that won the inaugural trophy. I mean, that's a nice moment, and that's coming from a dub, but I'm happy for Kerry that they won that trophy.
Yeah, it was a nice touch that Kerry were the winners of today's final. It was a bit fitting in its own right because we all obviously bred and lived Kerry throughout his whole life, and yeah, obviously it was a great kind of occasion towards the end of it, and Gavin White even honouring Micheál's family as well, and even Paddy Clifford in the post-match interview was honouring Micheál's family. Like it's just a touching, really touching moment. And yeah, that was probably the main thing out of today. Really, that was the only probably, as bad as it sounds, probably is probably the only real thing that happened in the Division 1 final. Because you look at the game itself, you're absolutely right. Last 20 minutes was boring enough. Both sides were kind of playing it out as if it was another game, as if it was maybe a group game in the All Ireland series and not a national final. But look, Kerry won't care. They've won the final. They produce some good enough displays, but I think ever since that kick-out malfunction between Colm Reap and the Mayo defence, I think the game was nearly wrapped ever since then. When Paul Gainey pat the bottom of the net, I think that was kind of the moments where Kerry just kind of eased through the gears and got over the line in the end. Like there was only 1-2 pointer in the game. And there was a slight moment when Owen McLaughlin got the goal and Ryan O'Donoghue got the 2-pointed free. We were thinking Mayo could come back into the game here, but it just never materialised. After that Ryan O'Donoghue 2-pointed free, it just kind of fell flat again, which was kind of even more frustrating in its own right. But look, fair play to Kerry. They got over the line. The Omens would say that they'll go on and win the All Ireland this year, which is very, very likely now. They're peaky at the right time, you have to say so. But like the league final today was very, very other than the obvious beef between Colm Reap and David Clifford in the first half and the second half in particular, it didn't really have that spark, which was probably the most frustrating thing about it. And look, Kerry deserved winners. Obviously, Mayo were very, very. I wouldn't say Mayo were a disgrace or like they don't look like winning an All Ireland or whatsoever. I just call them a bit flat. They just look like they were kind of easy through the paces and they didn't actually want to win the game, which was kind of surprising. I thought Mayo would actually go home for this game because it's a national trophy on the line. It's against Kerry. You'd think that they'd go for it, but maybe they're saving themselves for Sligo next week. But then again, like even if half Mayo team should be able to beat Sligo. Let's be honest here. Sligo are Division 3. They're at that level, and Mayo probably should beat them in Connacht next week. So you would think Mayo would,
given what happened to Galway last year, but I do agree.
Yeah, that's maybe that was probably the reason why they eased off a bit today. Kerry don't have a game next week. Mayo do. Sligo are capable. I wouldn't say they will cause a shock, but they are capable of causing a shock. So Mayo might have had that at the back of their minds and they're thinking, okay, like if we're within, I'd say 5-6 points going down the home stretch like they were today, we'll just hold up the hands. That's basically what it was. And look, Kerry deserve winners, but disappointing enough game for a spectacle like a Division 1 final.
It was, and the thing is we'll come to the Division 3 final. I thought the Division 3 final was a staggeringly better game of Gaelic football. Like, it was much more enjoyable. There was much more scores that you would consider to be kind of worthy of making a reel over. Do you know what I mean? Like that you'd put them in the highlights and everything like that. Whereas in the first half, especially when I was looking to create the reel to put up for TGR, I was literally like, here, like, what? Give me something, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I really, really do think that just in this game, the mistake that Colm Reap made with the kick out, which led to Kerry's goal, that was a sucker punch for Mayo. It put Kerry firmly into the driving seat. Kerry built up a fairly healthy lead of 8 points. Then Mayo had the opportunity to really, really push Kerry to the pin of their collars when Owen McLaughlin's goal really came out of nowhere. Like, it was just all of a sudden he just put the head down, charged at the gap, and fired it into the bottom corner. Then O'Donoghue gets the 2-pointer free. All of a sudden, they've cut the gap from 8 points down to 3 points. And just the way that Kerry managed that situation out was really, really good. Like, Tony Brosnan kicked the next score. They managed out that potential momentum that Mayo had, because you could feel it. Like, you know, when the goalkeeper's lining up to kick out and all of a sudden you hear the crowd starting to get a bit involved, and you could tell that because Mayo can be at times a real momentum team, and if they get you on the back foot, they can really do damage. The way that Kerry managed out that period was crucial. And in my opinion, that was the period in which they won the game, because they managed the storm. And once they got through that and they went back 4 points ahead, 5 points ahead, 6 points ahead, Mayo didn't look like they had that dog in them to pull them back again. And that's why going down the last 15 minutes, as Liam White himself says here, the crowd even went silent in the last 15, 20 minutes. It just felt very flat. I just feel like Mayo, with potentially one eye on the Sligo game, were just like, yeah, I don't know if this one's there for us. And that led to a very calm last 15 minutes, which it wasn't in the league final last year between Dublin and Derry. It was absolute pandemonium. It wasn't calm at all in the final 15 minutes between Kildare and Offaly. It was pandemonium in that one as well. So I was expecting a bit of chaos in this one. It was very calm, but Kerry were the better team and deserving winners. Looking at both of these teams, Kerry and Mayo, two teams that very easily could have been relegated in this league campaign, very easily could have ended up in the league final with a completely different opponent. The way that this league was, it was so bizarrely unpredictable, as unpredictable as I've ever seen it. Where do you put them after watching them in the league? Because the thing that I think a lot of people need to be honest about is, we can't now all of a sudden go from last week saying that, oh, Mayo are this and that, and now that they've had a bad performance in the league final, completely flip on them and say the opposite of what we were saying a week ago when they made it into the league final. They are still the same players that they were last week. They had a bad performance today, I would say. Where do you put them? If you're talking how likely it is that Kerry win in All-Ireland and how likely it is Mayo win in All-Ireland, because that has to be the goal for both of them.
Yeah. Like, when you look at the official Allianz League rankings, Kerry would be number one and Mayo would be number two, but obviously I don't think that's probably the case. Kerry, you could argue, are still number one, and then Galway, Donegal, I agree with comment there, it's probably between them three for the All-Ireland. Mayo, then, would you have them at number four? Would you have Dublin number four? Probably Dublin. Honestly, I'd probably still have Mayo at about number 6, just below Armagh. That's probably the just a standard opinion, really. I just feel like in some ways they were lucky enough to get to the league final. Like, if Donegal scored the penalty last weekend, Mayo would actually, we'd be talking about Mayo as a Division 2 team. We'd be talking about them as ranked number 9 according to the Allianz League rankings there. So, like, Division 1 was just bad, really. Like, you look at it, Kerry finished second place and they eventually won the league and they finished with 8 points. Tyrone went down to Division 2 and they finished with 7 points. That's probably epitomised the whole of Division 1 in its own right. Like, other than Derry, every team was competitive, and it's kind of hard to kind of rank them from worst to best or whatever. Would you rank Tyrone above Mayo? I'm not sure either. Like, it's a very, very tough one to call. I think it's kind of a question to be asked in the first few stages of the championship, maybe after provincial championships, and as we go into the group stages, we can answer definitively where are Mayo in terms of the rankings then. But in terms of now, I'd probably Mayo number 6 and Kerry about 1 or 2, probably 1 just about at this present moment in time. But obviously, we'll have to see in the championship in the next few weeks how it all plays out.
Yeah, certainly. We have a good comment in here from Sam McGowan. He says, lads, you can't put any one team into any bracket at all. The league is codology and illusion. I absolutely agree, Sam. I think when you look down through the years at teams that have looked fantastic in the league and then gone on to do absolutely nothing in the championship, and teams that have been relegated in the league and had a big say in the All-Ireland series later on, like, or come from Division 2 and won the All-Ireland, like we've seen in the past 2 years with Armagh and Dublin. The league, as I've said time and time again, and I'll make this brief because you've heard it before, Matthew, is it showcases what you're capable of, what level you're capable of getting to, but it doesn't show who is definitively the best team in the country. That's why with Derry, like, I still believe from seeing them play to that level last year that Derry are well capable of competing with the best teams in the country and beating the best teams in the country because they still have the bulk of that squad. We have here a few comments going to run through these before we move on to the next game. So Brian O'Riordan here says, Offaly, very, very impressive performance. Their running game will cause Dublin problems if they meet in the semi-final. And he also says, can't believe how much Kildare have gone back from the side that nearly beat Dublin in the Leinster semi-final a couple of years ago. Sean also says, Mayo do play Sligo and then have a few weeks for the Connacht final. Granted, they should win. Kerry only have to get through Munster, so they could have afforded to go for it playing the long game. And Brian says here, might be time to move the league finals outside of Croke Park. We had 39,000 last year. I personally would still say keep it in Croker for now anyway and see kind of what happens next year with the attendance. Brian here says Kerry Mayo was really bore fest. Beg the question, with fixtures cramped in, if teams want to be in the final. The game was flat, awful. It came alive with the McLaughlin goal. Then Kerry scored 5 to kill off the game. Kerry should have won by more, but missed a lot of chances. They definitely did. They missed a lot of chances. Sean says, I think Mayo are overachieving considering the squad aren't as good as the one in the 2010s. And also gives his ranking. Kerry, Donegal, Galway contenders, Dublin, Tyrone, Mayo, Armagh, Dark Horses, Derry, Monaghan, Derry, Roscommon, competitive. I've had my doubts over Kerry, but they have proved away their grounded out wins without playing well. We're going to move on then to the Division 2 final. But just to wrap up on the Division 1 final, Kerry, the better team. I'm delighted for them that they won the inaugural Micheál O'Muircheartaigh Cup, because realistically, where would Micheál have wanted it to go? Definitely would have wanted it to go down to the Kingdom. And it was a lovely touch by Jarlath. Massive respect to him for that, for allowing me or asking Micheál's family to present the cup to Gavin White. Thought that was a really, really nice touch. We are going to then move on to the Division 2 final. There was a really, really impressive win here for Monaghan. Monaghan 126, Roscommon 19 points in Croke Park. Matthew, both of us went for Monaghan, but I think it's fair to say we didn't anticipate that it would be a 10-point victory.
No, we didn't. And a personal apology to the people of Monaghan for not predicting to go up at the start of the season. If there's one county that I'm delighted to prove me wrong, it's Monaghan, because they do it every time and time again. Even with the population that they do have and the resources that they have, they still produce some outstanding performances. Like, that was a brilliant performance last night, and it was almost total football. Like, their shooting accuracy 67%, their kick-outs, even with the new rules, 80%. Rory Beggan, again, outstanding with the 2-pointer, got 3 last night as well. 126 in Croke Park. I think that's the most out of any team this weekend. I'm trying to think now. Kerry got 118, Limerick 311, and yeah, that is the most out of any team this weekend. And it's incredible, really. From it wasn't just a flash in the pan that they scored 126. They've been doing it game on game on game this Division 2 campaign, and they've looked really, really impressive. Like, even like Jack McCarroll coming off the bench getting 1-2, but Balgan getting 5 points, 1-2 pointer. Andrew Woods did very well in the first half. Stephen O'Hanlon ran at defences all night. Conor McCarthy, outstanding. Ryan McAnespy, Ciara McNulty, Gary Moore. And I did say in the preview during the week that Monaghan would struggle at midfield because, Cork kind of cleaned them out in the scheme. But they brought back in Gary Moore now. And again, it's like with the Mayo situation with Jordan Flynn. It's kind of, is it either coincidental or is it a masterstroke that this player has been brought in to improve that sector of the pitch? And I think it's a masterstroke from a Monaghan point of view that they brought in Gary Moore in there. He's a big, strong fella, and he's doing absolutely brilliant in the midfield as well. And Rory Beggan's kind of learning nuggets from the kickouts of the new rules as well, which is a good thing from a Monaghan point of view. And it was just kind of the complete performance in Croke Park last night. You have to give them a lot of credit over that. Roscommon, though, and I think this might be a tough year for Roscommon. Look at the last 2 performances in particular. In the league, you want to be kind of peaking towards the end. Roscommon had peaked at the start and then took a dip. That's kind of concerning from a Roscommon point of view.
You say the same for Donegal then. The
thing is, though, Donegal, like, getting promoted to Division 2 is important. But for Donegal, did he actually want to reach a league final? The proof will be the pudding next week against Derry in the championship.
Maybe.
So
I have my theory on that, which is that's the Donegal management team moving the topic of conversation. Because they were really bad that day against Galway, and all of a sudden, when the game is finished, no one's talking about Donegal's performance against Galway. Everybody's talking about, do you actually want to get to a league final? You look at all the great managers. Alex Ferguson pioneered it. Anytime Manchester United lost, he'd always talk about the ref, the kit, the fixture list, yada, 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 and change the topic of the conversation. So people walked out of that ground saying, oh, well, we have a problem because nobody wants to make it to the league final. Donegal went to Galway and got blown out of the water. And it got less airtime, less coverage than the question of who really wanted to make it to the league final. And that question had always been around. That question had always been, like, circulated. It was circulated last year and the year before. But when Donegal lost, it got pumped up for 1 week only.
Yeah, true. But we'll have to see next week how they perform against Derry. If they blow Derry out of the water, then you have to say Jim was right, wasn't he? But that's for next week. That is for next week. But in regards to this game, Roscommon looked kind of flat, very like Mayo as well. Like Roscommon were attempting 2-pointers like Monaghan, but Roscommon were just falling flat on their face and tried to attempt them in its own right last night. Like 58% shot accuracy. Their kickouts weren't as good as Monaghan either. Ironically, Roscommon actually had more turnovers than Monaghan, but Monaghan just used the ball a lot better, and you have to give them a lot of credit for that. They've improved as the league has gone on. I would say it from a Monaghan point of view as well, which is good leading into the championship. And you know what? I know Donegal and Derry are Division 1 sides, and they've looked impressive in some stages of the league, both of them. But I wouldn't put it past Monaghan to beat either of them at this present moment in time. The performances they're giving at the moment, they look really, really good. There's no pressure on them to retain Sam Maguire's status or whatever as well. They can have a bash off in the Ulster Championship. And let's see where it gets them. Like, I think Gabriel Balogun deserves a lot of credit for this, because there was a lot of kind of negativity around Monaghan football by some sectors of the media early on in the season, hence why most people actually didn't predict them to go up. But Gabriel Balogun has tried to kind of change that narrative. You have to give him a lot of credit for that. Like, he's taking over from Vinnie Corey, a guy who took up to the All-Ireland semi-finals, who had made them semi-competitive. Then the next season, they kind of fall flat in their face, losing a certain amount of consecutive games. And then Gabriel Balogun comes in, and he kind of, even with the new rules, Monaghan evolved even more with them. And that is probably the biggest compliment I could give Monaghan as well, because as the new rules came in, Monaghan got better. And you have to give them a lot of credit for that, obviously. And it was a brilliant win last night.
What do you think of the key things in that? Because we're talking about the off-season that they lost Conor McManus, a generational player. And I know that the reliance on him had, lessened as he got further and further into the twilight of his career. But he's still a massive loss when he did go. What have they been doing that has caught your eye offensively, which has led to these hugely impressive tallies they've been putting up from week one? Like, they put up a massive tally in week one against Cavan, and it's carried on right up into putting 126 in Croke Park in the final.
Simplistic as it sounds, I think they're just shooting a lot better. They're making better shot decisions, and they were certainly kind of making rash shot decisions last year. They were kind of, even in the Galway game last year, where they got very, very close in the preliminary qualifying, it was almost like Monaghan were trying to make it a kind of a slogfest against Galway, and they were trying to beat a win out of them or something like that. But in terms of this season, they're letting their shooting boots do the talking. And I think that's probably the main thing from a Monaghan point of view. Yes, McManus has left, but you look at the players there: McCarran, Bannigan, Began himself from goals, Andrew Woods, Stephen O'Hanlon, Conor McCarthy, Kieran McNulty. They're all chipping in. And they're all shooting really, really well. You look at the spread of scores that I put out in the stats previews during the week as well. I think it's more. I think it's about 23 different scores or something like that, something in around that number, which is absolutely superb for Monaghan. It just shows that other players are stepping up, but they need to step up now that Conor McManus has left the panel. Like, just a stat for you as well: every player that took a shot last night against Roscommon scored, which is even more impressive. You have to give them a
That's
lot of
crazy.
credit as well
And are they
for that. Like,
shooting more? Do you know, like that? Just sorry to put in, but we went through that stat at the start of the league that teams who shoot, as stupid as it sounds, but teams that are kind of willing to take more risks in terms of shooting more, rather than trying to get to the percentage position, quote unquote, which had become a big problem in the game because you'd see players not take the shot when they clearly should have. Are Monaghan just pulling the trigger a lot more as well?
there's an argument for that. They had 31 shots last night.
There
But
you
then
go.
again,
Compared to
Roscommon actually had 31 as well. But I think the
Oh, wow.
difference is Roscommon they either had a bad night or they were shooting in positions for the sake of shooting. When you look at Monaghan, they actually got into positions where they were realistically going to score and they put it over. Like, you look at the shooting accuracies, both sides has 31 shots. Monaghan's shooting accuracy was 67%, Roscommon's was 58%.
Mm-hmm.
That just epitomises
So a
the
little bit
point as
more
well.
percentage position type then. Because definitely with Began, when Began is coming up to get involved, there's definitely a bit of calculation of like, when are we going to give the ball to Rory?
And there is the argument as well. Like, when Monaghan get a free, I would say about 47 metres out, 43 metres out, they're getting Rory Began on it straight away.
You can see the free against Monaghan, you're cooked. Like, because they've got the best, you could argue the best free kick taker in the country right now, especially for the long outside the 40-metre arc. Like, Shawnee O'Shea for me would be another great shout in there. But for a 40-metre arc kicker, Shane Walsh would be a good one too. But Began is right up there, man. And like, his technique is just absolutely perfect. And Monaghan are just ticking along so nicely. We have comments in here about them. Brian says Monaghan were brilliant. 126 is a very impressive performance. They look very strong. Dark horse for Ulster. And then Sean also says Monaghan are so impressive, always finding new ways to outperform, even after losing their talisman of McManus. There's an example of the game when you see counties like Meath and Kildare underachieving, which will come to later on in the show. So yeah, I think there's no doubt from the start, Monaghan have been fantastic in Division 2. Couple of slip-ups here and there, losing the normal league game to Roscommon and losing to Down on the final day when their final place was already secured. But in this final, they were fantastic. A 10-point win over a Roscommon team that I personally, at the beginning of the league, thought would win the league because Roscommon are so versed in getting out of Division 2 and topping the table, winning the league, everything like that. Yeah, for Roscommon, as you were mentioning, we'll give a quick word to them before we move on completely from this game. They started off the league very strong, had some very eye-catching victories. Their stumbles came, obviously, against Meath and in Westmeath on the final day as well. And Cavan was the big one that made me kind of sit up and take notice. Are they improving under Davy Burke? Are they in the same position they were this time last year under Davy Burke? Or are they actually sliding backwards a little bit?
It's hard to know, actually, because last year, yes, they got to the All-Ireland quarter-final, but you looked at the group stages, and there was a discussion between yourself and myself and my podcast about Roscommon winning no game whatsoever up until the Cavan game in the last game of the group stage.
Yeah.
And then they win against Tyrone and Oma, which I don't care about saying this. Tyrone were very, very inconsistent in 2024. So Monaghan, Roscommon were always going to have a chance against that Tyrone team. And did really look at the Armagh game. I know Armagh ended up winning the All-Ireland, but Roscommon scored 1 point in half an hour in the All-Ireland quarter-final.
That was Gaelic football last year. There's another example of why the new rules are needed, by the way.
Exactly. But you look at the first 3 games, I thought Roscommon are excelling under these new rules. And ever since, I would say, since the Meath game onwards, other than that game against Cork, and there were a few contributing factors to that. Number one, the Cork hurlers played before the footballers. That kind of drowned out the atmosphere. Number two, that Cork team had a lot of injuries. Where the dog were spoiled a small little bit. They were a bit tired before their training camp in Portugal or whatever. So Roscommon maybe had the upper hand that night. But other than that, Meath game they lost. Cavan they lost. Westmeath actually was the one that made me sit up and notice. I know Westmeath deserved a point, to be fair to them. But for Roscommon to draw that game, and when you look at the rules behind it as well, if Dar McVitie got that 2-pointer against Cork in Kingspan Breffni, Cavan would have gone up, not Roscommon. So that game was important from a Roscommon point of view. And for them to drop the ball like that against a Westmeath team that was already relegated, that kind of made me sit up, and it was like, whoa, this team looks on a downward spiral. We'll see this weekend. We'll see this weekend against Monaghan, and the proof was in the pudding there. They lost by 10 points. Yes, Monaghan were very, very impressive, but I'd be worried for Roscommon going into the championship. Yes, they have London next week. You would expect them to win in Rice, and with the greatest of respect to London. The next game after that, provided all goes well, is against Galway. Galway, you to be kings of the 2-pointers at this present moment in time. We'll see how that game goes for Roscommon, but we'll have to see later on down the summer. But it looks very, very poor from David Burke's point of view. To answer your question on have they improved or not improved, I think either they've stagnated or they've actually got worse.
Yeah.
So
I would say it's a different. Yeah, I would say we'll find out by the end of the year. Like personally, I was more impressed with them 2 years ago when they got up. Sorry, 3 years ago. The year that they played Galway like 4 times. They played Galway in the group, they played Galway in the league final, and they played Galway in the championship as well. They could, like, every second week they were playing against Galway. That was 2022, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2022, yeah. That year I was very impressed by them. And I thought maybe that could be the year that they would, push a bit further through that glass ceiling. But they've kind of yet to do it in the last 2 years. They've yet to have a result in the championship outside of Connacht that has maybe be like, wow, didn't see that coming. Like most of their championships have kind of gone how I imagined or how I anticipated that they would go. Just before we move off this game, and something has just hit me now, and I cannot believe I didn't talk about this in the Division 1 because I literally have it down as a bullet point in front of me here to ask you. It was put to Max Day and it was put to Jack O'Connor in the post-match press conferences. Why both of those teams have such a lack of 2-pointers in all of their games? Why aren't they going for them? And you look at compared to Monaghan, compared to Galway, compared to even Roscommon, who have been lapping them up. Mayo, especially at various parts of that game, I remember looking at Mayo constantly standing on the outside of the arc, and they would still revert to their running game, hand pass, look for a run off the shoulder, and they'd literally shoot, I'd say, 5 steps inside the arc. Like, they weren't getting a whole lot closer to the goal. Why do you think? Because then in the post-match, McStay more or less kind of was like, oh, it's not really been a massive focus for us. I'm like, why? Because there's going to be a time down the line where you need to nail a 2-pointer. And you want to be as practiced in this field as you can be. And the league is a perfect opportunity to do that. Do I think that Galway are going to go into the championship now and just try to hit 2-pointer after 2-pointer? No. But if Galway are going down the home stretch and they need a 2-pointer, they have figured out in the league who their go-to guys are to kick those 2-pointers. And Kerry and Mayo, in my opinion, still have only 1 or 2 players that they would back. If Clifford is double marked and if Shawnee's on the bench or injured, Kerry are screwed. Same thing with Mayo. They need a hero to step up in those situations.
That is an excellent point, I will say. And just on a point on Kerry as well, in the last 3 games that Kerry played against Armagh, Galway, Mayo, they have improved, no doubt. But in the last 3 games, they haven't scored a single 2-pointer.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, even for a league champion in a side that is primed to go on an all-Ireland run, that is crazy. And even look at Mayo today, they had a 2-point effort on the stroke of half-time because of a 3-on-3 infraction, I think it was, at Ryan, who actually kicked it wide. He did kick one over in the second half, but it's like, if you don't find your 2-point kickers now, then when are you going to do it? It's going to be very, very interesting, actually, to see how many 2-pointers Mayo and Kerry actually get against so-called lesser opposition. Because Mayo play against Sligo next week, and they all going well, they play Leitrim. Kerry play against Cork or Limerick, obviously, in a few weeks' time. We'll see how Kerry react to the 2-pointer. They'd probably have to kick 2-pointers because the Cork have got their 2-pointers in Mark Cronin and Brian O'Driscoll. If you get the ball to them, they're going to kick the ball over the bar from any distance outside the 40-metre arc. You look at Kerry at this present moment in time, there's the argument that they don't have any at the moment, other than Shawnee, who's injured. So it's going to be very, very interesting the next weeks or so. Maybe, and this is a big maybe. Maybe Mayo and Kerry are saving themselves in getting 2 pointers until they face the lesser opposition in the championship. If that makes sense.
Maybe.
We'll
But
have to see.
I personally don't think so, because I think in the 2010s, Mayo's calling card was always their hard running style. That players like Lee Keegan, Paddy Durkin, and like then later on when they came into the team, like Owen McLaughlin, Matthew Ruan, those lads would put the head down and like find the gaps in defence and open up space for then Killian O'Connor to come off the shoulder, or Lee Keegan would just try go all the way for goal. Their hard running style, Aidan O'Shea deserves a massive shout there as well, actually. But their hard running style was their calling card. And I feel like with the new rules, there was parts of today where it felt like, even though it's a completely new team with loads of new players, it's like they slipped into muscle memory a few times where they were on the arc and they didn't even entertain trying to work a shot from outside the arc. It was always, we need to get this ball inside. We need to run it off the shoulder. And I'm like, why? Why are you not even entertaining taking a shot from out here? Because my point is that if you're playing Galway and it's going down the home stretch and somebody needs a 2-pointer, for example, Galway know that Conroy can kick them, that Walsh can kick them, that Finnerty can kick them, Comer can kick them. Like, they have options. Whereas Mayo, if Ryan O'Donoghue is having an off day, who kicks it? Matthew Ran, maybe, but Matthew Ran will be being heavily marked. But like, do you get what I mean? Galway have more options from this. And because Mayo, and to the same extent, Kerry, haven't been sharpening that tool, they don't have the same knowledge about their 2-point kickers that Galway do. Because yes, you can do it in the training ground and you can have the lads line up and kick from outside the arc, but it's entirely different to be doing it in a league match where it's ferocious intensity. And, you know, you got Shane Walsh kicking them over for fun, and Galway know he's our guy. He's our banker. And I just feel like they've missed the trick here. And I know that it's Kerry have just won the league and it sounds a bit stupid to criticise them now. Derry won it last year, did nothing in the championship. Mayo won it the year before, did nothing in the championship. Just because you won the league, you have to look at everything that the league has provided us. While Mayo and Kerry were in the league final, both of them could have easily been relegated had anything been different in how the table lined out. So it's very important that nobody gets carried away in terms of one extreme or the other, that we don't go too hard on a team like Tyrone that was so unlucky to be relegated, and then we don't get carried away with Kerry winning it like we did with Derry winning it last year. So, yeah, I think that's the 2-point arc discussion. We'll move through these comments here as well, guys. Love to see them keep coming in. We have here's Brian has a couple of comments and he says Roscommon have had a brilliant league, serious forwards in Cox, Murta and Smith. They seem to fall off against Meath and Westmeath. They certainly did, unfortunately for the Rossies. They said when they draw with Dublin and Croke Park in the group stages 2023, they were a better side than now. I agree, but my God, that was a difficult game to watch. Sean says Offaly are becoming arguably the best dual county in Ireland. People will say Galway, but when you consider the population and size of the county, it's great to see them compete on two fronts. It's a great point, Sean. I think pound for pound, like they've definitely got a shout to be the best dual county in the country. And nice segue. Offaly 217, Kildare 1 goal and 18 points in Croke Park. This was the game, the first league final, which took place today at HQ, and the faithful county pulled out a brilliant victory. Goals from Jack Bryant, which was an unbelievable goal, and Cormac Egan's, which was a very tidy finish as well from Egan, flying up from wing back. Offaly were full value for this win.
Absolutely, yeah. It probably, Offaly are that one county that make you realise what you enjoy about Gaelic football.
Yeah.
Even under the old rules, Offaly always had these kind of flair players that you were saying, I'd love to watch them again.
No,
Jack Bryan, like Jack Bryan today, I know he didn't score much, but you mentioned a very good point in the preview during the week. Jack Bryan, a player like him, has the potential to rip in Croke Park.
Yeah.
And he did know today. That was an outstanding display from him. It was almost like back to the under-20 days. Cormac Egan scoring a goal as well. Keith O'Neill, who's part of the under-20 team, scored 4 points as well.
He's a serious player, Keith O'Neill.
He is, yeah.
Brilliant player.
outstanding. These players definitely have potential about them. And Mickey Hart, you have to give him a lot of credit. Like, this was an Offaly team that last year were almost relegated to Division 4. They lost by, 12 points against London at home in Tullamore.
Yeah.
And to produce the performances like they have done all throughout the league, not just today, but all throughout the league, you have to give them a lot of credit. And that's a very, very good display from an Offaly point of view as well. Even look at all over the pitch, like Cathal Flynn at centre forward, Darren McDay, Jordan Hayes, I thought was very good. Jack McAvoy midfield, Paddy Donegan had a bit of a blooper, I would say, for the goal, for Harry O'Neill's goal, but other than that, I thought he was very, very good. Verdes to be kick-outs and everything like that. But yeah, it was a very good display from an Offaly point of view, with obviously Mickey Hart and Declan Kenny equally. So they've taken this team a long way. You have to give them their kudos for that. But yeah, it's a brilliant display from an Offaly point of view. It's just disappointing that they won't be probably in Sabacore, which is, you know what, that's a discussion for another day. I'm holding about. They might win the Talented. I think, honestly, that's the thing. I was saying before, maybe this weekend, who do I think would... You're taking ahead to the championship predictions now, Séamus, that you're going to make during the week and things like that. Who would I say would win the Talented Cup? I was thinking in my head, Offaly or Louth.
Right now, I'd back Offaly to beat Louth. New rules.
Yeah, I would as well. Because they have more flair players. They have more players that are willing to play on the front foot as well. They play exciting football. You could argue the Talented Cup semi-final in 22, I remember, against Westmeath. Lots of them players were very, very raw. And Westmeath had a lot of experienced players. But now, you even see Jack Brady today. He's almost like a different player in terms of bulk, not in terms of skill-wise, but in terms of bulk. The guy's stronger now. Cormac Egan. These guys are getting bulkier now in a good way. These guys are ready for battle. And I think Offaly could do, whether they're the Sabagoyer or the Talented Cup, they could do very, very well this season. And it's just disappointing that it won't be the Sabagoyer, because honestly, I'd rather watch them now than a Louth or a Clare in the Sabagoyer Cup. There's no disrespect to Clare and Louth. I would rather watch Offaly in the Sabagoyer Cup because they play football the right way. They have exciting young players. They have exuberant talent all over the pitch. And they've been really, really good. An interesting stat, actually, Séamus. They only made 2 subs today, Offaly. And both of those were with 3 minutes to go. Like, it probably just shows you the youth and exuberance in this team as well. But Offaly still have some recognisable good names on the bench, like Aaron Keelan and Oisin Keenan Martin, who actually didn't come on today. So maybe they might save them for later on in the championship. We'll have to see. But very good win from an Offaly point of view. And look, Kildare did their part. I think there was some good sparks from Kildare point of view. They just missed too many chances. But they were just beaten by a better team, a more exuberant team. And they looked really, really good, Offaly. I can't get them any more praise than I already have.
Yeah, no, they've been absolutely brilliant. And just to extend what you said about making you remember what you love about Gaelic Games, I'd extend that beyond the team to the fans as well. Like, when Offaly get a sense that a team is going to take them to certain places and they can really get behind them, by God, they turn out for the team. Like to a level that is just absolutely, like, it beggars belief. Like, when you watch how fast the under-20 All-Ireland hurling final sold out last year, like that was a carnival that day. It was just unbelievable, the atmosphere and everything for an under-20 final. Like, how passionate they were. Like, you watch 2006, the Leinster final against Dublin. I know that was against Dublin bringing a big fan base, but Offaly travelled in droves. 82,300 people at that Leinster final, because there was a real sense that Offaly could beat Dublin that year, and it was a very close game. Dublin came out the right side. But when Offaly get going, they have the same power, in my opinion, as a team like Cork, like Wexford, like Armagh, like Mayo, that they can, and many other examples, that they can light up a championship. They can absolutely light up a championship. They lit up the under-20s last year, and I can't wait to see what they can add to the mix at senior level. Good Offaly man here, Liam White, he says the likes of Cormac Egan, Keith O'Neill, John Furlong, Jack Bryant, etc. are just made for Croke Park. They've been exceptional throughout the league. They certainly have. Roman Carton then, he says, don't want to be a killjoy on the weaker counties who get to play in Croker, but has to go to provincial grounds. The atmosphere was shocking today. 33,000 over 4 games, not enough. to open Croke Park. Very interesting point there, Roman. Nerb here says, I'd say if Antrim turn on their game in the Tailteann like the previous 2 years, they could make the final. Brian with a couple of comments here. He says Cormac Egan, Keith O'Neill and Paddy Dunnican who kick out 3 pinpoint and brilliant. And then Brian as well here says Brian Flanagan has a really hard job on his hands. He certainly does. Sean here then says new manager, but Kildare still a shit show. And again, Sean, thanks for the lovely segue, because now I'm going to throw this to you about Kildare. And look, I'm going to be a little bit more different on this. I'm not going to be too harsh. I'm not going to, channel my inner Aaron from GA Fan TV and go in on
Gaelic Games, Séamus. Gaelic Games.
Gaelic Games Fan TV, yeah. And but do we need to kind of change our expectations of Kildare a bit? Just think about it. Like if we're talking, they had a great period in the 90s and in the 2000s. They had a great period, but like at the same time that Kildare were really, really, really good under Kieran McGeeney, there were other teams that were really, really good at that time. Like Down were fantastic. Down made it to an All-Ireland final. Down beat Kildare. And Down fell as far as Kildare fell. And I feel like Kildare have come in for more flack than Down have. There was one period where it really seemed like things were bad for Down. But you have, like, for example, Cavan winning Ulster and falling all the way to Division 4 then immediately after. Don't get the same level of press that Kildare got. The thing is, when you're in the stadium and when you see the lads out there on the pitch, the Kevin Feelys, the Derek Irwins, the Alex Burns, you cannot question their commitment. They're giving everything they have. Brian Flanagan is a really promising manager. But, like, what do you think it is? Because it's kind of similar, in my opinion, to how Roscommon got promoted. It's like they've done it. They've achieved what would have been the first objective, which is get promoted. Obviously, they both would have wanted to have gone up as champions. But they have got promoted. But it's left me feeling a little bit kind of like, I don't know, just I'm not convinced by them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not convinced at all that Kildare will be able to put it up to Dublin. And I'm not convinced that they're going to stay up in Division 2 next year.
I'll ask you this, Séamus. Are you convinced, look at the side of the Leinster draw they're on this year, that they'll get to the Leinster final?
Oh, it's Loud is the main one in their way.
Possibly Westmeath as well.
Do you know, the way Westmeath played, man. The way Westmeath played in every game in Division 2, you wouldn't put it past them getting to a Leinster final, especially to save themselves.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Like, do you think that's way too harsh a question to even acknowledge? But, like, I'm saying that, in the past, the way that it was framed that like it was an issue with the players and it was issue in the camp and the commitment, etc., and players were walking away. Players like Kevin Feely and Derek Irwin and Kevin Flynn, Mick O'Grady, David Hyland, they've been in that panel for years and they've committed a lot of their lives to playing for Kildare and they're giving it everything that they've got. And I feel like because of the success of that Kieran McGeeney team, people hold this current Kildare crop to a much higher standard. And in my opinion, the circumstances that Kildare team was in, don't get me wrong, that Kildare team that McGeeney had was much better than the Kildare team now. But that Dublin team that the McGeeney Kildare team were going up against, that Dublin team was not as good as the Dublin team today. I still believe the Dublin team of 2010, 2011 was not as good as the Dublin team that we have now. I just believe we were much more beatable, given why we nearly lost to Wexford back-to-back years. A Wexford team without Matty Ford. And I still believe to this day, if Matty Ford was fit for that game in 2011, we would have lost. So what do you think? Like, do you think it's time to kind of like look at this with a clean slate and be like, okay, this is the crop of players. What do we think they're capable of doing? And then when you look at it like that, I'd honestly put them more in a similar boat to, because I feel like people hold them to the same standard as like, I'd say people hold them to the same standard as like Roscommon, that type, that they should be pushing for Division 1 in Division 2 at the bare minimum. Whereas I would actually much more put them closer to like mid-table Division 2 at the max right now.
Yeah. No, I probably would as well. And even when you look at the mid-table Division 2 teams that are Meath is literally, you're talking about Cavan, Louth, Meath, Cork. Are you saying Kildare are at that level?
I'd say they could mix it with them, yeah.
Yeah,
give it another year, I'd say they can.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I still think there's some good points to Kildare. I do think there was some good sparks today. I still think like there was a drive for the manager of Brian Flanagan. I just feel like, and it's an old cliche, but they missed too many opportunities. They had 36 shots. They converted 50% of them. Like, compare that to Offaly's 65%. That's not good enough, really, to go on and win. Like, when you look at it, actually, Offaly had 26 shots. Kildare had 36.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of chances that they missed, and it probably just summed up their day, the last 2-pointed effort from Alex Byrne. They rushed it.
Yeah.
They had more time. It was almost like they didn't realise they had more time after the hooter had sounded. They could keep the ball for as long as they wanted. But they rushed in the end. They were like, oh, crap, we have to shoot here. They end up taking the shot. Game over.
Do you think they should have hired Mickey Hart? Do you think they should have tried to?
No, because honestly, I do think that Kildare team needed
with Brian Flanagan, the way that Offaly have done it with Declan Kelly.
With Brian Flanagan, I think so, yeah. But as a standalone manager, no.
Yeah.
Because
no, I agree.
With Mickey Hart, he's done an amazing job with Offaly. But when you look at what he went into, we say Derry, for example, I think Derry, not right now, but historically, would be probably at the same level as Kildare.
Mm-hmm.
He went into Derry. Yes, he got a bout off the league, but then there was always friction in the camp once the championship went around.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing Kildare need, considering what they've been through over the last few years. So I think what they've done, what Offaly did with Declan Kelly, I think that would have been probably one with Brian Flanagan. But you still have to give Flanagan a lot of time, because you look at Kildare last year, they were a rabble at some stages. They lost to Laois in the Dalton Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I asked Aaron this question on my own channel when we were grading the teams, and we automatically Kildare and F, obviously, for 2024. And I asked them this question: were you surprised that they lost to Laois in the Dalton Cup? And Aaron said, not really, no. And the more I think about it, the more I think, yeah, it wasn't that much of a surprise, was it? Considering the way Kildare performed, considering they're probably historically kind of the same level as Laois. When you look at it, Kildare have only won, 2 or 3 All-Ireland titles. And a few Leinster titles. They haven't won a Leinster title since 2000. So, maybe we're putting them on a higher pedestal than they actually are. Maybe either. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think the thing that kind of does it for me is 2022 when they got relegated with Dublin, and they were fantastic in that Division 1 campaign. Like, they really, really went to the wire in every game that they played. They should have won against Kerry, I remember, and if certain results had gone differently, they would have stayed in Division 1 that year. Like, they proved that they could compete at that level, which was why, like, they went from being a team that were very unlucky to get relegated from Division 1 to being the next year a very lucky team to stay in Division 2, and then the year after they got relegated, and it all seemed to be falling apart. And that was why it was like we'd seen how good those players could be, so it didn't make sense why they were at this level. Me personally, I think I would back them. I genuinely think that if they can put in the right system, what Louth have done, Louth have shown them, in my opinion, the template. Because Kildare, as Sean says here, Kildare have had great underage teams, but whatever it is, the senior management team is so mismanaged. Like, they have so many great players coming through. And one of their best players today was James McGrath, centre half back, who wasn't around the last couple of years, but he's back in now. And he looked $1 million there at centre half back for Kildare for long periods of that game. Came up and scored a couple of lovely scores. And I personally think that if they can put that similar structure in and back Brian Flanagan, I think they can. And I genuinely mean this, as deluded as this sounds, because Dublin can't win forever. It's a race to see who's going to beat them. And it's Meath, Offaly, Kildare, Louth, Westmeath, maybe. For me, they're the 5 that I'd say if Dublin are going to lose in the next 5 years, it has to be one of them to do it. And that's why I'm constantly monitoring the 5 of them and being like, where's the challenge coming from in Leinster here? And I do want them to make progress, because I want the competition to be as strong, as healthy as it can be. And when, as we've multiply discussed, once you know the result, the competition's gone. And that's why the Leinster Championships attendances have gone from selling out Croke Park in 2006. Yes, the economy was better, but selling out Croke Park in 2006 and 2007 and 2005 and 2008 to now the attendance falls every year, because everyone knows Dublin are going to win before a ball's even kicked. Hopefully that changes for the better of the competition, but let's not open that Pandora's box, because we will never ever go to bed if we do. Brian here says, I would rate Mick O'Grady, Alex Byrne, Kevin Feely and Niall Kelly very highly. Liam here as well says Kildare were able to much great amounts of space during the game, but couldn't deal with a counter-attacking side. They certainly have good traits, but having seen them twice now, they have a while to go. Yeah, but I think they're on the right track. I really do. I genuinely think they're on the right track. If they just accept where they are now, take the humbling a little bit and build, I think that they can put something together. If they look at the example that Louth have set, I think they can follow that track. Now, moving down to the Division 4 final. Limerick beat Wexford 3-11 to 18 points. Gavin O'Reilly said on our preview, he said it would be an awful shame if Wexford were to win all 7 games in the league and then lose the final. Well, they've only gone and done it. Limerick beat them in Croke Park. A hat-trick of goals for the Treaty men. And they are the Division 4 champions. What did you think of this final?
To be honest, I think it was a final played by probably 2 sides that are realistically Division 4, lower level Division 3. It wasn't a great game of football, in my opinion, and you wouldn't say that either side have the potential of going straight up to Division 2 next year. By words though, would Limerick beat Cork next weekend? But look, we'll plough on with it. Look, I just think Limerick had better kickers and better long runners. That was probably the main reason why they won the game. But even when you look at Wexford, they had 37 shots and still lost the game, 16 converted. When you look at Limerick, they had 26 shots, converted 14. Limerick had a lot less possession, had a lot less shots, but they did what they needed to do with the ball, and you have to give a lot of credit and fairness to them for that. But you have to take into account as well Glenn Malone getting injured early on before throwing in the warm-up. It's unfortunate for him. Then a player went off through injury earlier on in the game. I'm not exactly sure who it was. Shane Pettit, he went off through injury. Like, that was a huge blow from a Wexford point of view as well. But like Tommy Childs, Darrow Sucru and Peter Nash got the goals. Even Emmett Richter and James Naughton, who were probably Limerick's key components, did well enough as well as supporting cast roles as well. And we were questioned during the week, did Limerick have enough other than them 2 players in Naughton and Richter? They certainly did. Like Tommy Childs in midfield performed well. O'Sucru was a threat throughout. I thought Peter Nash was very good when he came on as well. Danny Neville looked bright when he came on as well on the pitch as well. So yeah, it was a good win from Limerick point of view. Good to get a trophy on the board. For Wexford, it's a shame that they went all the games winning and then they lose this one. But you have to take into account the injuries that they did get early on in the game and before the game as well. That must have hit them like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, certainly must have. Liam says here, Limerick weren't heavily reliant on either James Naughton, which was good. Yeah, certainly. And look, Danny Neville, when he came in off the bench as well, that like he still looked very sharp. Thought Josh Ryan in goal for Limerick looked really, really good as well, made some big saves. Yeah, the way that they dealt with Wexford's multiple threats, I think Shane Pettick going off was a massive blow. He's been one of their standout players during the league. But you look at other threats that they had in the forwards, like Tom Byrne, Kevin O'Grady, who's a really sharp operator, Mark Rossiter, Ben Brosnan. They dealt with it well, and they were worthy champions, in my opinion. And I'm going to say this now. I'm going to toot my own horn. Do you remember I said about the clock, how it would be better if after the hooter went that we have one more play? We've seen examples of it with Jordan Flynn's goal. But in my opinion, we witnessed over the weekend, a massive addition to the excitement and the drama levels in Gaelic football. When that hooter goes and you have one more play, we saw a perfect example of it in the Division 4 final between Wexford and Limerick. When Limerick were 2 points clear, Wexford knew that they had to either get a goal to snatch the win or a 2-pointer from outside the 40-metre arc to salvage a draw. And the drama that can bring is sensational. In the end, it works its way to Niall Hughes. An audacious shot. He had to go for it, and it went just wide. And then, the drama and the relief for Limerick when the ball goes wide and they've won. Can you imagine the drama in a packed out 82,300 people Croke Park for an All-Ireland final if two teams are neck and neck, level, say, and the hooter goes, this play, once this ball goes dead, game's over. Can you imagine you have a shot to win it like that? Like a golden score. It'd just be unbelievable, the drama. Plus, they have also thwarted a potential serious controversy with that hooter being the way that it was. Because remember the Westmeath game when they couldn't decide whether he'd kick the ball before the hooter or after the hooter, and they said basically the goal stands. That could have caused them massive problems if that was for a championship game down the line. So this is a win-win for the GAA, and I absolutely love the drama now. When the hooter goes and you have one more play, it adds something extra, and usually there seems to be scores at the end.
Yeah, exactly. We see another example as well, as I mentioned before, with Gaelic Sport shot for Kildare. If that went over, we could have had an equaliser there as well. So I think you have to give a lot of credit to the FRC. They are listening to the suggestions, and this is an indicator to those that say the FRC is ruling the game, and that football is becoming a bit more dead now, and things like that. And that old malarkey in the media, I would say. What the FRC are doing is trying to improve the game. And this has been proved even more. By the end of the league, there was a few tweaks to the rules. Why? Because people suggested them.
Yeah, they're listening,
That's what they're doing, and they're trying to improve the game of football. They're not there to boost their own egos.
Yeah.
That's why they're there. It's pretty straightforward to understand.
I think that the FRC have done a sensational job. Genuinely a sensational job. Like last year, Gaelic football wasn't enjoyable to play, watch, be involved in. Genuinely, it was in terms of the pure entertainment value. You usually, I'm being too harsh there, but in the genuine entertainment of it, if you were to watch 5 games, 3 of them probably wouldn't be great. It was always just so conservative, so safety first, so boring and predictable. And the other thing as well, and this is saying this coming from a dub, and watch my team do this. Kerry did this, Mayo did this, Galway did this. Any big team, when they played against a team that was an underdog, if the underdog scored a goal, the favourites would be like, oh, that's cute. We're taking the ball now, and you're not going to get it back for the next 10 minutes because we're going to bring our goalkeeper in up and play piggy in the middle, and we're not going to give you the ball back for the next 5 minutes because you had the nerve to score a goal. It needed changing, and we're on the right path. Even if you don't like certain things, we're on the right path, and I think that's something we should all get behind as fans of the game, because it's what we love and what we want to see is competitive, enjoyable, attacking and exciting games, and we're seeing that. The average scores, Matthew, last year that we'd be pulling up for every game to talk about, the average score in a league game would be last year something like 112 to 28 or something. This year, the average score is something like 318 to 117. Like last year, if we'd got the Offaly versus Kildare scoreline, we'd be like, "Whoa, this was a banger." And we're like, "Yeah, it was a great game, but we had lots of them this weekend." Like, we're on the up. We're on the up. That's my point. Brian says, I would say Leinster is Dublin's for the next 5 years. Need a very strong and competitive meeting Kildare. I loved going to sellouts in the Leinster Championship in the early 2000s. So did I, Brian. Kieran McBreen, good to have you back on the show, man. He says, can Jack O'Connor do the double for the 5th time? And also says, same old failings with Mayo. In a word, Matthew, can you do the double for the 5th time? Yes, no?
Right
I'm
now,
saying yes, you can.
Hurts me to say it, yeah.
Brian says here as well, for Wexford to win 7 games and lose the final is a sickener. The injuries affected them badly. And Sean says, last year teams weren't playing not to lose, but now they're playing to win. Perfectly put, John. Perfectly put. Last year it was they were trying to concede less than their opponents. This year they're trying to score more. So that's the football over and done with. We're going to move then to the hurling. And this was a true game of two halves. Down started off this game really, really badly. And they roared back into it to take a very, very impressive 422 to 318 victory over the Lily Whites in Inniskeen. It's a massive day for the Mon men.
Yeah, brilliant. I suppose Dowd have been considered a team that have done well in the normal league phase of Division 2 or Division 2A as it was called in the past few seasons, and then not turning up as such for the final. I remember one year against Westmeath, they were poor enough in that final. Westmeath went to town on them, but Dowd didn't buckle, and you have to give them a lot of credit. At half-time, the management team and the players could have easily said, look, this day isn't for us. We'll go again in the championship. But they wanted to win this league title, and they went for it. Like, you have to give them all the kudos here. Tom McGrattan with 2-5, Tim Prenter with 1-3. Owen Sands was my man of the match in this game with 6 points from play. Donald Hughes from midfield, 4 points. But what I will say, in the middle of the second half, down to take a full grasp on this game, they had a lucky goal through Mark Fisher free. He took the free in between their own 45 and 65, and it floated all the way into the Kildare net. Sometimes you need
though, like in a game where they're as evenly matched as that, because you've seen in the first half, especially when Kildare hit their 3 goals and blitzed out ahead, that you play this game again, maybe Kildare get the run on down, can't turn it around, and Kildare are the Division 2 champions. Like, I think these two teams are very, very evenly matched. Just the way that hurling is that you tend to see big wins. But down in the second half, I thought, you're right, absolutely, we're fantastic. Tim Prenter at 11, Chris Egan, Tom McGrattan, as you were saying, Owen Sands as well, like, strutted his stuff with Ballycran in the club championship, and now strutting his stuff again with Down. Like, they are absolutely gone. I think I can't wait to see them against Antrim in the Ulster not the Ulster Championship. Hopefully the Ulster Championship soon if all goes well. But in the league next season in Division 1B, because Antrim have kind of sat there as the unquestioned best hurling county in Ulster in terms of the standard of their team over the last few years when they've had the players like Keelan Malloy, Neil McManus. But Down now are going to challenge them next season, and you know that game is going to be tasty.
Yeah, what I will say, I'm excited to see Down before even the league kicks off next year, in the Joe McDonagh this year. And Kildare, to be fair, like both of them are in the Joe McDonagh alongside, I think it's Kerry, Laois, Westmeath and Carlow. So it should be very interesting. And Kerry probably got downhill a bit. Laois are probably stagnating. Westmeath are stagnating a small bit. You would argue Carlow are the front runners for it at this present moment in time, but it'll be interesting to see them Down carry on this momentum, this brilliant league campaign that they have had. They only lost one game, and that was against Meath when the job was already done. They were already promoted, so maybe you could count that in another year or whatsoever. But it'll be interesting to see how they get on the Joe McDonagh now. Can they keep on the momentum that they have been building throughout the league campaign? And I'm sure Roland Sheehan and his management team would want to do that. Like, they want down to be competitive in the championship, not just in the league as well. And yeah, they'll be playing against the likes of Clare, Dublin, we'll think of other good teams. So Carlow are a decent side in there. Antrim themselves.
I'm personally as well. Just like, I can't wait to see them against Carlow in the John McDonough, because like, this is the Carlow team that pushed Dublin to the pin of their collars in the league this year. A Carlow team that drew at Kilkenny in the championship last year. A Carlow team that put it up to pretty much everybody that they played in the Leinster Championship. So if Down, or Kildare, if they beat Carlow, for example, it gives you a very good indication of where they're at as well. So yeah, and I mean, just the standard of their play was superb. Racking up 422 is really.
And what we'll say as well, Séamus, just to mention it, Kildare do have hurlers there that could definitely pose a threat in the Joe McDonald Cup.
Oh, easy.
And they proved it yesterday. In fairness, like David Qualter with 7 points, Jack Sheridan 2 goals, Darren Melville took a brilliant goal as well yesterday. I thought Keane Boron from centre back was really, really good. As well with 2 points. Like, you have to give Reid Boron as well, the captain, with a point in this game as well. Jerry Keegan with 2 points off the bench. And Brian Dowling as the manager, the former Kilkenny Camogie manager, won All-Ireland with them as well. So Kildare have a good team, Down have a good team. Both have excellent players on their team. You'd be just hopeful that they do well at the Joe McDonald Cup. I could have a crack off the likes of a Laois, a Westmeath, a Carlow, or somebody like that in the Joe McDonald this season. It'll be just not just good for those counties in particular, but would be good for hurling if those sides compete.
Certainly. I'm going to run through the comments that we have here about this game. So we have here Kieran responding saying, "Cheers lads, late to the party this evening. No, it's good to have you. Can join whenever." That's the beautiful thing about the Unclip pod. Sean Mayo says, "Great pod lads. Cheers, Sean. Your contributions are greatly appreciated as well, guys. I mean, it's making the pod so much better, this engagement." Liam White says, "Delighted for Down, especially my own club man Trevor Fletcher being in the management team." Yeah, there's the Offaly connection there again. Brian O'Riordan says, "Under the old rules, Dublin Kerry 2013 and 16 were the greatest games I've ever been at. Mayo 2016 replay and 2017. They were all unbelievable games. My personal favourite out of all them was Dublin Kerry 2013. That was just an unbelievable game. Like, I just remember, because I was 12 when I went to that game, and it's just like the most amazing atmosphere I'd ever been at in my entire life. It was just bonkers. Talking about the other 2 league finals then that happened as well. Mayo beat London by 14 points to a goal and 8 in Hawkfield. This is part of you being right about everything. Liam Lavin led the way in this one with 5 points. We also had Shane Boland with 5 points too. Mayo do win a league final this weekend.
Yeah, brilliant win for Mayo in this game. And as you mentioned there, Liam Lavin and Shane Boland with some excellent displays. And they were 1-5 to 4 points down at half time. And again, they could have easily buckled at half time, like Down in the Division 2 final, but they fought back into it. You have to give them a lot of credit and fairness to them. 10 points to 3, they outscored London in the second half after Conor O'Carroll goals for the Exiles in the first half. But yeah, it's a brilliant win for Mayo, and hopefully they'll do well in the Nicky Rackard Cup this year. They reached the final last year where they were beaten by a Donegal team that did themselves proud in Division 2 this season, so that's no disgrace in its own right. So you'd be hopeful from Mayo point of view that they take this league form into the Nicky Rackard Cup and go ahead and win that competition. They certainly have the players to do so, the likes of Cormac Phillips, the likes of Liam Lavin, the likes of Shane Boland, Joey Boland, I think, is another player for Mayo as well. Like, they do have some very good players, and hopefully they'll do well in the Nicky Rackard Cup. The game was on Hawkfield. I'm sure we'll get on to this kind of discussion. We'll get on to that in the Division 4 final, which there was a lot of talk about it. But good win for Mayo, excellent win, and hopefully they'll bring the form into the Nicky Rackard.
Certainly. We have a couple of comments in here about it as well. Brian says here, "I seen a post earlier this week where the Dublin opening game in Leinster is in Croke Park. Surely it has to be Pearse Park or Ockram." Brian, I'm sure you can back me here. Dublin fans, let's just dispel a myth. Dublin fans love a road trip. We're not the ones constantly pushing for the games to be in Croke Park. We just get told where they are. Nerb says, "Wonder if the Down Hurlers will move to Newry next year." Interesting debate. Yeah, we'll move to that Division 4 final then. Of course, Louth coming out on top in this one in Trua. Trua GA in Monaghan this game was played. Louth, 16 points from Mayo, 1-8. Darren Gagan did most of the heavy lifting with 9 points. Players like Peter Fortune, Sean Flynn also chipping in. And the Wee County already on the board with Silverware in 2025.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark had scored 2 points for wing-back as well. So very good display from a Low point of view. And they're unbeaten in the league in Division 4. So we have to give the whole Low management team kudos for that. Like a very good win over Fermanagh team that looked to be competitive in the last few seasons, won the Laurie Mar last year. They might be down Luca McCusker, but Sean Corrigan and players like that are there. Sean Corrigan got the goal for Fermanagh. It was a very good display from Louth, and they deserve their accolades. But interesting enough, this was the main thing coming out of the game in Trua between Louth and Fermanagh. Both the managers, Joe Baldwin and Trevor Hilliard, the managers of the team, Joe Baldwin, the manager of Fermanagh, and Trevor Hilliard, the manager of Louth, actually came out to the Fermanagh Herald after the game, and they were both saying, I said I wouldn't say anything until after today's game. It's very disheartening for everyone, these boys of both teams here today, to not have played in Crow Park. And there's the discussion and all that the Division 2, Division 3, Division 4 finals probably should have been played in Crow Park. I would have taken it a step further. Why couldn't these 3 games be played next week with the hurling finals?
Yeah,
you're playing it underneath the football finals.
Because most of the people that will be going, I know that this year the Hurling League final is different. It's a bit of an exception because you have, in my opinion, the wave behind Cork Hurling right now is unbelievable, and that ground was always going to sell out for a league final. Tip as well will travel for that game. Or you already know Offaly are going to travel for that game. Like the standard Waterford as well will bring a good support base too. So I'm not completely surprised that like the game sold out. But basically my point is most of the people that would tend to go to these league finals are people who love hurling. And if you were to put, the Division 2, Division 3, Division 4 final on, a lot of fans would go to watch the games earlier. Like anytime that Dublin were playing in the Leinster Championship and if Wexford were playing Longford or something before it, I'd go and watch Wexford Longford, and then that would, have me buzzing for the next game too. Like it's just a more enjoyable thing. I would be in the same boat as yourself there. Why not have it as kind of a festival type day?
And worth noting as well, actually, moving back to the Division 2 final, there was actually in the scheme between Down and Kildare, there was no 65-metre lines.
Mm-hmm.
And between Louth and Fermanagh, there wasn't a fourth official.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are national finals, and you could argue about football and all that. That's probably the creme de la creme in terms of league finals this weekend. Yeah. And Jared Burns was at, in fairness, but like it just shows probably how far down the pecking order lower level hurling is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That these finals are brushed in under the carpet and things like that. Even like I got a message in the last few days that the Division 3 final between London and Mayo, that the Mayo scores were actually wrong. But I'm saying, look, I did it through match reports from various sources. That's all I could work with, and some of them were wrong and fair. That's what someone was saying to me anyway, but he was saying, not a blame to yourself. It's just the way the hurling game is promoted down through the lower level divisions.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with different counties, like where it's actually made kind of difficult for the players to even play for the county teams and everything like that. Like hurling needs to take a wider view of this. That like if we focus in on only preserving what we have at the top, things change with time. Like counties can be big into one sport, and then over time they can drift a little bit from it and everything like that. And the reality is, like, the waves come and go. We need to make sure that hurling is strong in every single county around the country. We can't just be like, okay, we've got an amazing thing at the top here. Yeah, that's our Premier League, but we need to like have, consistent, strong structures in place to make sure that the games are being developed and being grown at every single level. And I would have been in the same boat as yourself there, that I think something as small as playing all the league finals together, making it a day where it's like a festival of hurling and things like that in Croke Park as well, to, you know, give that extra incentive for the players to make it there, or in Semple Stadium or Porky or like a really iconic ground like that, not a GA training centre where the 65-metre line isn't there. Like, do you know what I mean? Because that does rub off the wrong way. And it's I'm not taking personal shots at anyone. I'm just saying we can go the extra mile for the players here on this situation. And the other thing as well is last year they did the plan for hurling debate on the Sunday game. And this isn't a go at anybody involved in that. It really isn't. But I think that a debate like that should not happen where there's time constraints on it, because you could tell that they only had like 20 minutes to work with there. So anytime that they were opening up like real important points, like they had people like Peter Fortune on, who's the Louth hurling captain, and he would get into like a really good point, but you could tell they're keeping one eye on the watch here, and we've got to wrap this up. This should happen on like the RTE Sports podcast. Like they have the GA podcast. There should be a full hour and a half episode where they just talk about the plan for hurling and what we're going to do for hurling in these counties that are in the Christy Ring, the Nicky Rackard, etc., that are struggling to get the numbers together, but have seriously passionate hurling people. Because once you're not under the time constraints, that's where the best ideas can get put forward and where you can debate it and where fans can get involved in the discussion and give their ideas. It should be a very similar process to the F4C with the football, where the fans can give their input and feel like they're part of the project too. Because when the fans feel like they're part of it, that's when they really get around it. And yeah, I just feel like that's a must happen in 2025, is that you get that cast back together. You get the Neil McManuses, the Peter Fortunes, all of these people who can really get that, really understand it, and let them have that full debate where we can lay out what we're going to do for the competitions like that, like Christy Ring, Laurie Marr, etc. in 2025. I like your input on that.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree with you on every point there. Just on the live discussion, I think it would work obviously for our podcast because we have a lower attendance and things like that. That's obvious enough compared to RT. I would just worry in terms of the live discussion on RT. You need a lot of monitors for that, because
no. I'm just saying, like on their Zoom podcast, like that they do on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I think genuinely that would be an excellent idea as well. And will RT do that realistically this year? No, they're into championship stage next week. No, which is a shame.
It will if it hits the same level. Because if it hits the same time of the year and the same debate comes up, as we've seen over the last few years, that tends to be a re-emerging theme with the GA.
No, but it's worth noting as well tonight, and League Sunday is going to be on in. Well, League Sunday's already kicked off now, but
yeah, we better get moving.
But it'll be interesting to see on League Sunday tonight, is there coverage on the Hurling League finals?
I think there will be.
We'll have to see on that, but I agree with you on every thing she said there. Like even grounds that you could see the 65-metre line, something small, like even Inniskeen was not like the Down Kildare game yesterday. I was watching it and it was a brilliant game of hurling, but it didn't have the feel of a league final, which is probably the main thing that needs to come out of this. You need to have kind of a ground. No offense to Inniskeen, but you need a ground that has a league final feel. Doesn't have to be Croke Park. It could be Partalton and Meath. It could be Newbridge, the way that's redeveloped right now. Tullamore, Fort Laois. It could be any of those grounds. You know, just don't have it in a training centre where it's just obvious that it doesn't look like a league final.
Yeah, no, I agree. Brian here says as well, I think it's great that the majority of most of the championship games on RT wasn't right to have it shown on GA Go. And then Brian backs up my point about Dublin loving away games. He says, love away games, colour and atmosphere, nothing better than an away win. Even the away games in the league have much better atmosphere and buzz. And trust me, the journey to those away games is probably my highlight from it. Now, we're going to run through then the LGFA's final round. And basically, there was one game that mattered. And if one result went one way, then it was all wrapped up. And that was Mayo losing to Waterford, which they did in Kilmacthomas 2-13 to 1-6. Now, it wouldn't have mattered because Kildare beat Tyrone 4-10 to 2-8. And in the other two games, Armagh and Kerry were already confirmed to be in the final. They both lost their last games. Armagh 4-5 to Meads 2-12. And then Kerry's 2-10 to Dublin's 2-12 in Austin Stack Park. Your thoughts on the final round of the Lidl LGFA Leagues 2025?
Yeah, the Armagh and Kerry losses, you can't read too much into them, obviously.
Yeah.
There was nothing on the line at all. Kildare to stay up deserves a lot of recognition.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give them all the kudos for that. Roshi Bird with 2-1, Nasa Dooley and Aoife Bernana also got goals for Kildare as they survived beating Tyrone, and that meant that Mayo were definitely down, but Watford, Laura McGregor goal twice for them. Kelly Anahoe got 6 points as well. Watford look dangerous going to Munster. They look a serious enough team, and they will challenge Kerry and Cork all the way in Munster. I've no doubt about that. Brilliant win for them. Brilliant win for Kildare as well to get over the line, and they're staying up next season. And just for probably the promotion of ladies Gaelic football as well, you would have hoped that Tyrone or Kildare, two of them, to make it the best out of it, would have stayed up. One of them has Kildare. Fair play to them. Mayo have gone down. I would worry about Mayo this year at Séamus with Liam McHale there. All doesn't seem very right there. They've only won one game out of the possible 7. They're very reliant on one player, Sinead Walsh, in this league campaign as well. I'd be very worried about Mayo in this year's All-Ireland Championship.
Australia as well.
That's it. Yeah. And Shauna Howley's gone.
Gilroy, Sarah Rowe, they'd walk back into the team.
Shauna Howley gone. The two Cafferty's gone as well.
Outrageous, man. You can't lose that much talent. But yeah, Kildare, the result that stood out for me was beating Dublin. My man's back. Jules the Cool from Mexico. Greetings from Mexico. He says, fantastic GA Games Day. Great comments. Greetings from Mexico. Great to have you back, my man. Love to see you on the show. We have then as well, we're going to round up the other games which took place across the LGFA leagues. I'm going to read them out now. So in Division 2, Clare 5 points, Galway 4-22, Donegal 8 points, Cork 1-8, Westmeath 2-11, Monaghan 13 points, Tipperary 1-12, Roscommon 10 points. Division 3's round 7, Down 6-7, Carlow 4 points, Cavan 10 points, Limerick 9 points, Wexford 3-9, Laois 10 points, Offaly 1-8, Louth 7-13, goddamn. And then the two semi-finals in Division 4, you got this one right, Antrim 5-8, Leitrim 3-10, mad scoreline, and an even madder scoreline here, Fermanagh 5-12, Sligo 3-13. So Antrim will play Fermanagh in that Division 4 final. Do you have a favourite or a pick?
I will say, Séamus, I did back Leitrim, not Antrim, so I know you're trying to give me credit. I did back Leitrim to win.
Did I talk you into it?
No,
you picked Antrim initially.
No, I said Leitrim.
I
said Leitrim. Yeah, so.
What time is it?
Yeah, but that was a difficult day to take for Leitrim, but Broda Devlin scored 2-3, Lara de Hunsey with 1-1, Anna Mulholland and Nicole Jones getting the goals as well, so fair play to Fermanagh for that. Emer Smith got 1-8 for Fermanagh. Like, again, it's standard, like she always delivers from a Fermanagh point of view. Congratulations to Wexford, promoted after beating Laois 3-9 to 10 points as well. They're promoted alongside Cavan, so they'll be in the Division 3 final against them. So well done to them. Obviously, Carlow and Offaly are relegated to Division 4. That was already confirmed this weekend. Clare and Roscommon have gone back down to Division 3 after getting promoted last year, which is kind of a shame. The same two teams going up, then go down again. And the same for the promotion. Galway and Cork, who came down from Division 1, are going back up again. But you wouldn't have expected anything less than Galway and Cork. No offence to the sides in Division 2, but they were expected to make it out. There's no doubt about that. Like Cork in second place were at 18 points. Third place team Tipperary were finished on 9 points. 9 point gap between promotion and third place, which probably just shows you the class between Galway and Cork and then the rest. That was probably obvious when you look at it. But yeah, some interesting finals to look forward to. Galway, Cork, Wexford and Cavan, and Fermanagh and Antrim.
Certainly. Brian has a very interesting proposition. Don't tempt me with a good time, Brian. He says you must come on the bus away to the away game in Championship, and next year in the league. That would be a deadly little road trip down the country. Nothing better than a road trip during the Championship. And then, of course, we have the Camogie Leagues roundup. So Camogie Leagues are in round 5. So this episode is primarily about the league finals. When the league finals come up for Camogie, they will take centre stage in the same way that the men's Gaelic football did in this episode. But running through the big results, which we've seen in 1A, Waterford 10 points, Tipperary 9 points, Dublin 14 points, Kilkenny 2-16, and Galway beat Cork by 6 points. Cork 13 points, Galway 19. The Rebels finally lose a game.
Yeah, but a bit of context is needed in that shape as they were playing kind of a second team Cork, because they were already guaranteed at the league final, and we didn't know whether Cork would play a second team or not, but they got a few minutes into...
That's not a Cork man coping, is it?
But I will say this from a Cork point of view, in terms of getting players minutes and things like that. Special mention to the players down in the West Cork direction. They've got a few Cork debuts, like Millie Condon started in midfield for Cork. Her second start in the league campaign, which is very good from a West Cork point of view. Dara O'Brien got a game for Cork, and so did Claire Kingston coming onto the pitch, so special mention to them. So they came on, but ultimately Galway got the win in the end. Carrie Dolan got 10 points and Ailish O'Reilly with 4 points. So Galway will play Cork in the league final in the next few weeks. In the end, Tipperary couldn't do anything about it regardless, because they lost to Waterford, and Niamh Rocket and Emer O'Neill got their points. And Nora Murphy got 2-8 for Kilkenny as they won 2-16 to 14 points. And speaking about coping, Séamus Dublin are relegated to Division 1B. Sorry to say that. But one thing to actually mention before we wrap up, there was a Camogie League final this weekend. Forgot, I didn't know this was on. Genuinely didn't know this was on. That's just the promotion of Camogie in general. The Division 1B final was on this weekend, and Antrim beat Clare on a scoreline of 310 to 111. That is Antrim's 6th win in a row. You have to give Antrim a lot for that, in fairness. When you look at Antrim last year, they were a rabble, losing every game, but I'd say 7 goals.
9 goals against them or something in the game.
Something like that, yeah. And they're promoted back to Division 1A. And they beat a pretty good Clare team by 5 points. Very good display from them. You look at Roisin McCormick with 3 points, Katrine Dobbin with 2-1, Katie Malloy with 1-1 as well. And yeah, very good win from an Antrim point of view. They're into Division 1A, replacing your own Dubs. But yeah, very good win from Antrim. And congratulations, Antrim.
Certainly. Anyway, guys, that is the end of this weekend review show. I've really enjoyed this one. Matthew, thank you so much for jumping on again. Always a pleasure. We are going to then read through the comments here as well. Brian O'Riordan, Zio Zakul, NIRB and TSB, Liam White, Sean O'Malley, Kieran McBreen. And we also have Sam McGowan, Sean O'Malley. Lads, you all made that podcast thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you so much for all your contributions to it. We'll be back again this time next weekend at 8 p.m. to talk about the Hurling League finals. I cannot wait for that one. Matthew, been a pleasure as always. Guys, until next weekend, enjoy your week. Enjoy the Hurling finals. Agus Torah.